All right. Welcome again, everyone. As I mentioned, this briefing series, which began back in September, actually, we began by delving into several of the underlying principles and the concepts that underpin the Declaration of the Rights held by future generations and the responsibilities of present generations to uphold those rights. This was a living document that was drafted in Moab in 2012, which was the first gathering of this Women's Congress. And now that it's April, it's time to move our conversations out of the conceptual and into the realm of organizing and of action. So in these next several calls, we've invited several women to speak about their experience, specifically with women-led direct action and how different women lead this call to act. To begin the transition in the briefing series call, it's an honor to have Penny Opal-Plant here with us today. She is an organizer with Idle No More and very involved in the San Francisco Bay Area Native community. And without further ado, I'm just going to pass the floor on over to her. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if everyone could please *6 their lines to mute. We will listen to Penny for a little while, and then when it's time for discussion, anyone who wishes to speak should, absolutely, and you can do so by pressing *6 to unmute your line. So without any further ado, Penny, it's an honor, welcome, and we're so thankful to have you. Go.
Thanks, Caitlin, and I just want to welcome all my relatives that are on the phone right now. And I have been a grassroots activist for most of my life. I'm 56 years old, and I started being an activist when I was about 21. And so my realm of experience is primarily about working within communities and helping people understand whatever the issue is, and using a lot of different tools, including inspiring people to show up at whatever is important in that community at that time. And so now, of course, the community is our global community of humanity on the belly of Mother Earth. And because if we don't all focus right now on ensuring the future of the next 7 generations, then there might not be a future for them. And so I've been experiencing a profoundness over the last about 3 or 4 months. There is something happening that I've been waiting for, and I hope that all of you have been feeling it too. That people are starting to have an acknowledgement and allow in the really difficult information about what is actually happening with our climate, with the fossil fuel industry, and all of the harming industries that have been habitually destroying everything. But there's something new that I feel that's moving through our human family. And I've been framing it as Mother Earth's immune response. And I know that there are other people around the world who are framing it in the same way. And I think as these things happen, that information is coming to a lot of people right now. And I see us as cells activating. We are her immune response activating. And as one cell becomes active and shiny and inspired and powerful, then it allows adjacent cells in her immune system to also activate. And it's quite amazing for me to see this occurring in front of my very eyes. So I want to just start with that there's something powerful that's moving through all of us, and that the more we allow that power to move through us, the more it enables other people around us to also embody that, and so on and so on. I'll start on the local and then move to the global. Our local Idle No More group, which is Idle No More SF Bay, was inspired, of course, by the First Nations Idle No More movement, which began in November of 2012. So right away in December, Native people and our allies in the Bay Area began coming together and doing actions at the Canadian consulate in support and in solidarity with our First Nations relatives, and also doing actions at Chevron, which I can see from my home. And the Chevron refinery in Richmond is the one that exploded in August of 2012 and sent 15,000 of our neighbors to the hospital. And so, of course, we've been there quite frequently. And also at Kinder Morgan in Richmond, which is the largest pipeline builder in the United States, and is now bringing in trains 100 cars long through all of our communities here in the East Bay, filled with the Bakken oil that is the most explosive oil that's ever been extracted. And these are the types of trains that have been exploding all over the United States and Canada on an average of 1 to 2 a month over the last 4 or 5 months. Excuse me. And so we have a lot of areas here in the San Francisco Bay Area, a lot of industry and, of course, the Canadian consulate that we can focus on. And so that's what we've been doing, as well as going to places and just praying. And we pray at these sites also. A good example is that Osprey Oriole from Weekend inspired us to do something for 1 Billion Rising this year on Valentine's Day. And so we met in a park near where Chevron is here in Richmond, and we made Valentines. We wrote Valentines on hearts, and we took them to the gates of Chevron, where we had some speakers and where we all wrote things like, "We would love it if Chevron would quit poisoning our communities," or "We would love it if Chevron transitioned immediately to renewable energy," things along those lines. And whenever we do an action at Chevron, of course, there's always a line of police officers as well as some Chevron staff standing behind them. And our modus operandi is to always greet the officers, because they usually come to us before we arrive at the gates of Chevron, shake their hands, give them a big smile with wide open, loving hearts, explain what we're going to be doing, and then when we arrive at the gates of Chevron, it's usually me, but it could be anyone, goes up to the line of police officers with open hearts and big smiles, shakes every one of their hands. So this can take, a little bit, because oftentimes there's 10 or more officers barricading the front gates, and talking to them, explaining what we're doing, telling them we're going to pray for them. I also ensure that the workers at Chevron step forward. I'll stand there with my hand out until they are embarrassed enough that they realize I'm not going to move, until they step forward, and I shake their hands. And all of this time I'm explaining to them what we're doing, why we're there, that we're going to be praying for them, that we're going to be praying for all the workers in the refinery, that we're praying for their children and their grandchildren, and then we pray. And it's quite powerful to have women and men praying. I usually start the prayer off, and then there's like between 20 and 100 people at these actions that stand there in silent prayer holding a pinch of tobacco, because that's how we pray, up in the air, sending all of these powerful prayers to the line of police officers, to the Chevron representatives who are there, and spreading it out throughout that entire refinery. We also pray for the CEO of Chevron, John Watson, for his mental health, because I have framed these CEOs that are only concerned about their financial status and not concerned about the future of their own children. I've been framing that as a mental health issue. And so we pray for the mental health of these CEOs, all of them that are causing so much damage. So our events tend to be very female-oriented. But of course, men come as well, and oftentimes they comment on how powerful it is to feel the energy at the events that we conduct. So that's how our local actions function. And we started out with a very small group of people, about 5 people, about a year ago, that were core people in our group. And we decided to create an affinity group, like the ones that were very popular in the early 80s as an organizing model, that I think it's very, very effective. So these are groups of people, and I'm sure that many of you are already familiar with how they function, but just to be very brief, an affinity group has members that trust each other completely because they're the folks that we rely on if we're going to risk arrest at an action. And so there are members who risk arrest, and there are members who support those who are risking arrest. And so now our group is about 30 to 35 people. That's our core group. And we go to all of the actions together. And then we have a larger group that's about 100 people who come to actions with us that aren't the core folks. And these are Native people and our allies. And so what started as a very small group has become a pretty strong force here in the Bay Area, and we are now being asked to do all kinds of openings of different activist events and do opening prayers and sing the songs that we sing. We always sing the Women's Warrior song, and sometimes we'll sing the Oneida / Cherokee Water song. And those are very powerful, and they become a part of our public persona. And so the way we grew our group was via social media, so on Facebook and on Twitter. And our Facebook site, which anyone can join, we have an open site, and then we have a closed group site, is INM SF Bay, and so if you want to look at that, you can, to kind of see how we share information and the model that we provide for people to join us. Although our affinity group is closed now because it can't get very, very big, we also encourage people to form their own affinity groups. So that's the model that we're using to organize and to get the messages out about what's important, the local information about the oil trains, the refineries, and so on, and also the national information that's happening all across the world with people and groups standing up successfully to fossil fuel extractive corporations. I hope that some of you are familiar with Erica Chenoweth's work. She has written a really excellent book that you can look up online, and she's done a lot of research into the success of nonviolent people's movements. She started out as thinking that they weren't successful and then changed her mind after doing all of this research. And so according to her research, it only takes 3.5% of the population to shift everything. And so, for example, here in the United States with the civil rights movement, once 3.5% of the population was on board thinking that, yes, civil rights need to be passed, their energy was in alignment with that, that's when things started moving very quickly and the laws got changed. And so 3.5 million people here in the United States is 11 million people. So that's a number that I always have in my mind. Like once we reach 11 million people who are committed to ensuring the future of the coming generations, who've allowed the devastating information that we all have to embody about where we are right now in the history of humanity on Mother Earth's belly. Once that figure is reached, then things are going to start happening very fast. And I think that we are moving towards that 11 million number right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if within the next year or two we reach that critical mass. So that's what I would encourage people to embody. I would encourage all of you to embody that number, to think about ways to organize in your own communities. It's very, very easy to form a group of people who are in alignment with the purpose of whatever your group is. I mean, organizing around the Declaration would be a wonderful thing to do. That Declaration is just so inspiring, and it's such a great document. And there's also another awesome paradigm-shifting document that you're probably aware of, the Declaration on the Rights of Mother Earth, that can be seen at the rightsofnature.org website. And those two documents, in conjunction with one another, can really help reframe how people think about where we are right now, that we don't have to have the future that is like the science fiction movies that present this bleak, drab, completely industrialized planet. Another thing that our group does is that we always encourage people to begin to envision and imagine the community that they want. So the questions that we ask are, what would your or our community look like beyond fossil fuel? How would our systems be? How would we have our food come into our community? Who would grow it? How would it be grown? What would our education system look like? Just really opening up to envisioning and imagining the future that we want. Because what we have right now on Mother Earth is the future that a select few people imagined with a lot of money. And what we get to do now is imagine an entirely different future in our communities based on the dreams and the ideas and the imagination of our community members, because that's how we're going to get to the future we want. Once we've imagined that, we can roadmap it back to where we are, but it's going to take some years to get that picture in all of our communities of what it is that we want. And I just want to mention a couple of big things that are coming up around the world. One of them is from October 2nd to October 16th, and it's called the Fortnight of Freedom, which is coming out of the Global Alliance on the Rights of Nature and all of the amazing activists that are part of that group from around the world. And I would encourage everyone to check out their website. The Global Days of Action will start on October 2nd, which is Gandhi's birthday, and go through October 16th. And so maybe, I know Robin is on the line, maybe she can give a little bit more information during the question and answer period, because she's been very involved in all of the global phone calls about organizing that. But if people are looking for something to organize around, this will be a really great time. It's also just a couple of months before the next UN Climate Conference, which is in Lima, Peru in December, where there will also be global days of action for people to organize around. So here in the Bay Area, we're getting in touch with all of the activist groups, and of course there are probably more here than anywhere in the United States. But we're talking to them already about what we're going to do during these global days of action. And each day has a particular topic, I believe, that people can organize around. And when I speak about organizing something, it could be as simple as having a group of people in a plaza with signs and taking photographs and documenting, interviewing people who are there about what their thoughts are and posting them on social media. The power of doing that cannot be underestimated. Social media has allowed all of us around the world to connect with one another in a way that we never have been able to do before. And that connection empowers people in ways that we will never know how much. That when I Don't Know More started with their hashtag and their Facebook page, those women never imagined that the social media movement that they started would, within a couple of months, have solidarity events around the world. So please don't ever underestimate the power of all of the tools that we have available right now. And so I think I've kind of reached my limit on time. So, Caitlin, should we open it up for questions? Or?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much for that. And anyone who feels called to, go ahead and star 6 your line to talk. And I'll facilitate the questions as we move forward, but just go ahead and feel free to speak up, and we'll deal with interruptions. So does anyone have questions for Penny or thoughts that were elicited from this conversation?
This is Robin. Let me just real quickly, and Penny, thank you for your beautiful message and your boldness. You bring such a powerful boldness in a feminine way that is so important for our planet and for our Earth community. And in terms of the Fortnight of Action in October, there are actually events can happen during the entire 2 weeks, but there are actually 3 days that we're going to be putting a focus on. One is the first day, which, as Penny mentioned, is Gandhi's birthday, and Gandhi was such a stand for truth and nonviolence and love of all life. And then the second major day is October the 12th, which we in our country are now celebrating as Indigenous Peoples Day, and it's going to be a day of unplugging and giving Mother Earth a rest. I've been thinking of it as Right to Mother Earth Convergence, and I know that IEN and others are looking very specifically at how to bring forward the concept of giving Mother Earth a rest in a much more powerful way for that focus. And then the last day is the 16th of October, which is also World Food Day. And one of the significances of this 2-week time period is it's really looking at how do we bring consciousness and reverence to a holistic approach to the earth, and recognizing that our food, and Vandana Shiva and Navdanya are very much involved, and they've actually, for the last several years, had the Seed Freedom Fortnight, and the consciousness around everything is related in terms of the origins of our seeds, and being sure that they're not being genetically modified, to the foods that we grow and how we grow them, and the choices we make around what we eat, and how that relates to our sacred connection to Mother Earth. And so that's the overall kind of the big picture for what we're looking to do in October.
Thanks, Robin.
Great. Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any thoughts that they'd like to share, questions for Penny?
This is Ann in Minneapolis, and I'm one of the organizers of the next Congress. Great to hear your voice and what's happening. I just really want to amplify the energy that Mother, I love that language, Mother Earth immune system, it's in full force. I just feel like the gifts that are flowing through the work that we're all doing right now to stand up for the planet and future generations. Everywhere I go, there are women saying, I need more information about the Congress. When is it going to be? How do I get involved? Just, and people sharing resources, and talk to this person at this media outlet and make sure they know it. And here's a good idea for someone who can help you with this aspect. It's just it's really, I think we might be at 11 million people. And I think we just need to begin to see it. And I think we are really at the point of shifting. And I know that's hard for some people to feel, but I know the sisters on this call feel it. And I just want to really say how impressed I am with the work you're doing and excited about what's happening.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Ann.
So I'd like to just, for anyone that's close to Washington, D.C., there's going to be I don't know if how many of you are aware of the Cowboys and Indians Alliance, but it's a group of Plains Native folks, and mostly in South Dakota, and Nebraska ranchers who've come together against the Keystone Pipeline. And keep in mind that these two groups of people are historical enemies whose ancestors brutally murdered each other. And they've come together to do a lot of really excellent work against the pipeline. And from April 22nd to April 26th, they're going to be in Washington, D.C. So if any of you can get there, I wish that I could get there. My husband and I were still trying to figure out if we can. They're setting up a teepee village near the White House, and they have ceremony and do a lot of work around, just around against the pipeline. And then on April 26th, 350.org is calling for another huge climate rally there. And so that those days will culminate in a big climate rally on the 26th. And it hasn't been really widely publicized yet. It's just starting to gain momentum. And so if any of you are on the East Coast or can get to Washington, D.C., that's going to be one of those really powerful moments in our time here on Mother Earth that will help shift things.
This is Christy from Moab, Utah, and I'm sorry that I missed when the Alliance Cowboys Indians DC thing is happening. What are the dates?
From April 22nd through the 26th.
Thank you.
So just coming right up, and very, very powerful. It also reminds me always that because of that alliance, that we can never assume that somebody is going to not agree with us now, because what's happening crosses all party lines, political party lines, and crosses any kind of lines that divide us right now, that people are waking up, some more slowly than others, some embody more fear than others, and it's harder for them to wake up, but people are waking up. And so, I have dropped assuming that somebody who I meet or talk to on the bus or in the grocery line or wherever I am, I have dropped thinking that they might not be able to hear what I'm going to say to them, because, in fact, people are much, much more conscious about what's happening now than they were even a year ago.
Hi, Penny.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, hi, this is Molly Arthur out here in Marin County, and I had the privilege of joining Penny at the Chevron action the last month or so, and it was so powerful to stand and pray for the workers, for the CEO. I thought you were friends, that you knew the policemen, all the time. And
no.
It was like a neighborhood. I felt like, we all, you see them every day as our protectors, in our own town, which was a really wonderful feeling. But I wanted to speak to your sense about, in the last 3 or 4 months, this energy shift. I feel it so strongly as well, and I am in touch mostly with women and women in the birth world at Keeper Summit next May here in the Bay Area that I'm going to obviously be talking to you guys about. But the sense I have of the collective energy, women's collective matrix is kind of where I've characterized this, and it's so powerful for you to mention that, Penny, because matrix, I looked it up, it's actually Latin for womb, which is, it's Latin for womb, and it is defined as a natural enclosure in which something organizes and forms, a matrix. And so I think we are in this. And every woman who I talk to, they go, oh, yeah, oh, definitely. We are there. We are in there. And we are together. And, we've done so much individual work, it seems, that now this collective work for all of us is palpable. And so I have a little Facebook page about that, et cetera. But just the sense that we belong together and we are in this natural forming and organizing. Thank you for that mention.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also our responsibility as women to step forward. It's because of the history of women, our history, and mostly in non-Indigenous society, because there are so many Indigenous societies that are matriarchal still to this day. But I think in Western societies, that women need or can, or it's time, that's the right word, that it's time for all women to take up the mantle of responsibility. And even when it's uncomfortable, to step forward. Even when we're frightened, to step forward, to open our hearts and step forward. Because what I've experienced this last year with all of the things that our local group has been doing is that when I personally step forward in that way, there is something else that happens. And that's because I'm open, because I have made my prayers that morning, because I've asked for guidance, because I've asked for help from the spirits, that there's something else that happens. And I can't take credit for like the prayer that you were at, Molly, at Chevron, because something else that's much larger than me comes through and works through me. And I think that's the power that we have to acknowledge that's happening, to understand that it doesn't have a whole lot with our personal selves or our egos, and to allow that power to come through and to be fearless in going out and speaking out in public, to going out and sharing the information that we know and that we have. I really feel like that's our responsibility as women alive right now on Mother Earth. And that's what she's calling us forth to do. And that when we do that there are so many forces that are assisting us. But they cannot do that unless we make ourselves available. Like another example is that our I Don't Know More group has organized a series of healing walks along the refinery corridors here in the northeast San Francisco Bay, and there's 5 refineries here, and every single refinery community along this corridor suffers from extraordinarily high rates of cancer, asthma, and environmental illnesses. And so it's a big thing that we've done. The first walk is this Saturday. There's a series of 4 of them, one each month, April, May, June, and July. And when we started organizing this, we knew it was a really big task, and we knew it was going to take a lot of people to help. But what wound up happening is so extraordinary. I don't even know at this point how many of the really large and smaller environmental groups have endorsed us, but all of the major ones. And people have been coming out of the woodwork to volunteer to help. And it's just been this amazing experience that I know that we've had all of these forces working on our behalf for. And the money has come. We haven't even set up a fundraising page yet, but the money has come. Every time we needed to have posters and postcards printed, somehow the money came. And so to embark, I'm encouraging all of you to embark on the ideas that come to you, because there's unseen forces that are working with us on our behalf. And so if I had thought through, this huge project in January when the idea came forward, then if I had thought everything through, it might have been frightening to me, but I didn't. I just trusted, and just our group kept moving forward, and all of the help came.
Wow.
So that's the powerful, mysterious forces that are at work through us, that are with us right now. And so if you have an idea of something to do in your community, just move through any concern, apprehension, and fear and start walking towards that. And I truly do believe that all the help that you need will come.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I my sense of the strength of women and the sense of the ancestors, because for the Western women, I think that's a whole new realization, that we come from a lineage of strong women. We have a maternal lineage that is deeply powerful, back to our ancestors. And to pray for the ancestors of the CEO, to pray and to have the ancestors with us and as models, Native Americans, to enable us and help us to do that, I think is strongly empowering for us to take on our responsibility and our authority to step up and be forward.
Mm-hmm.
Penny, this is Caitlin. You and I had talked about this a little bit, but I just wanted to bring it out to the group. I Don't Know More is really unique in that it is a group that was founded by mostly Indigenous women with one quote-unquote woman of settler descent. And I was wondering if you would mind taking just a minute to talk about sort of the process within the group for addressing these layers of privilege and these layers of oppression in a way that allows for solidarity, and also the process for being a model internally for the way that we can then address these types of issues in the external world. I was wondering if you could maybe speak a little bit about that, kind of the challenges that have come up or the opportunities that have come up in those conversations. How do different women handle those conversations? How does the group?
Well, I think our group is a little bit different for a couple of different reasons. And let me preface this by saying that I know that in some I Don't Know More groups, both First Nations and in the United States and other Indigenous and allies activist groups, they have there has been friction that doesn't exist in our group. And the only answer that I have to that or regarding our group is that we have a group of Indigenous grandmothers that have been meeting for many, many years, once a month to pray. And so in our prayers, we have laid a foundation with our prayers of trust and of love and compassion and power. And so when the I Don't Know More group was formed, all of the women except for one in we call it our Grandmother's Prayer Group, is involved in the I Don't Know More group. And so because we have this kind of a advisory council of elder women, that there's a different type of trust and ethics and a foundation that all of the younger people rely on. And so within our group, there has been friction between some of the younger women. And so we're in the process right now of organizing a talking circle with all the young women to dissipate the friction. And I think because, it's a lot of Indigenous people that are in our group that rely on and understand and have a framework for trusting older women, that our group is a little bit different than a lot of the other I Don't Know More groups. And because I personally am, on my dad's side, I'm Choctaw, Cherokee, and European, and I'm not very dark. I've been confused for a lot of different ethnic groups, but always as a mixed person. Like, people think I'm part Iranian or part Korean or whatever for my whole life. And so I easily fit into a lot of different groups just it's been so awesome and easy to do. And I acknowledge that I have a certain kind of privilege in mainstream America that many of my brothers and sisters who are much darker than I haven't had. And so that's made me a bridge. And so I'm able to talk to non-Indigenous people and to Indigenous people and people of all races from a position of I have ancestry in me that probably includes the whole world. But we all do. We all have ancestry that includes the whole world. And in my 20s, I had a prayer that I put forth that I would like to be a bridge at some point. And so now that prayer is being fulfilled right now. But what I want to impress upon everyone is that we can all be that bridge. We're all indigenous to the belly of the mother that supports us. And yes, there are Indigenous people, First Nations people, Native American people, Aboriginal people, all of the titles that link people who still maintain their traditions from thousands of years ago to Mother Earth. If we go back 5,000 or 6,000, 7,000 years, we were all living in that way. So we all have that connection. We just have to remember it. And so that's what I want to impress about being a woman, about being in a group of people, about moving beyond any preconceived ideas that we've had or cultural ideas that have been placed upon us or ideas that our family has placed upon us, to just step outside of that and move into, I am a woman. Because I am a woman living right now, I have access to the power of a mother's love. And the power of that mother's love is what's going to ensure the future of all of our children. And so within all of the Idle No More groups, I think that is the energy that is bubbling up. Within all kinds of groups there can be frictions, but if everyone, all the women ground themselves in that energy, we can move beyond all of that, because mothers will always figure out a way how to help their children get along, how to help the neighborhood kids get along, how to assist all the children in their community. And right now, the entire world's children, that's our community.
Thank you, Penny. That's helpful.
Hi, this is Heidi Hutner. May I jump in and ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for organizing this call, and thank you so much for speaking. I'm really, really taking it in and blown away. And just to kind of frame my question, I teach at a university, and I run a sustainability studies program. And so I'm always looking at, what my students know and don't know. And we're actually, just for everyone on the line, we're actually looking currently for professors who can teach Indigenous studies in the environment. So if anyone knows anyone, please send us your information.
Where do we send the information?
I'll send all the information to Caitlin and have her make it available. So would that be okay, Caitlin?
Yeah, absolutely. I can,
Great.
If you're comfortable with it, send it around to our listserv.
Excellent.
And
yes.
Is everyone that's on the call on that listserv? I believe so. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll hard to say how to get you my email, but I'm at Stony Brook University and in the Sustainability Studies program, and I'm the director of it. And we're actually looking for two positions. Both the top of the list is Native American, Indigenous, and then different fields. So if you know anyone, and I'll send the list around. But so my question really is how to to bring this into the university. I mean, there's so few faculty. I can't even think of one currently, unless I don't know who they are, at my entire university who's Native American. I'm sure they're here, but they're not very visible as they are. And so it's just a very big missing voice, and concerns me. And so I'm just interested to hear more about how you think that can change, how we can make that change.
So I actually hear two kind of questions, and so I'm going to answer them one at a time. And
okay.
One is that one of the women in our grandmother circle, and one of my closest friends, is a Seminole professor at Mills College.
Okay.
And I think that putting you in touch with her can actually answer both questions, because she teaches from an Indigenous woman viewpoint, and she just organized the National Ethnic Studies Conference at Mills College, where instead of sitting in rows of people, just about every group was done in a circle. And so she just used the Indigenous model right across the board. And I think that she can put you in touch with other Indigenous faculty at that level who can help you, with all of the questions that you have around how to institute more Indigenous theory and wisdom and science into your university.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to share? All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining today. It was such a pleasure for me to hear all of your voices and input. Penny, thank you. And as I mentioned, these are monthly calls, and the next two, if not the rest of the year, will be all about this idea of really moving our thoughts and now our prayers into these ideas of organizing and of action. So I welcome any feedback, always. If you have people that you think would really be great for this series, please feel free to email me. I think that's about it. And I will circulate the information from Heidi. And, I'll let everyone go on with their Thursdays. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Penny.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. Hope you all have a wonderful day.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. It was a fabulous call.